Shawn, I have a question for you. You're a prophetic minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I love how you've been raised up under some great ministries in your life. Do you have any thoughts or words or anything prophetically?
It's a weird time to be a prophetic voice because so much of what many prophetic people carried, and they didn't have exact information always, but they carried the spirit of what was coming.
Yeah.
And we know that even in the news media this last couple of weeks I was watching different people dissect their time with Putin and say he's different now.
Yeah.
And they didn't know how to say he's different. We know he's come under a demonic influence.
Right.
We know that it's in full manifestation. So we understand as Christians, there's a demonic oppression on him that's leading him. And we also know that there's a great outpouring that's about to emerge and come. And the enemy's trying to exhaust people. And so we've had pandemics and false, politics and all these things that have broken
say that again. Okay, you just said it. The enemy is trying to exhaust people.
We have compassion fatigue.
Yes.
We have exhaustion of our finances. We have exhaustion of our job situations. We have exhaustion of our food chain issues.
It's true.
Gas supply. I was at LAX as I was leaving.
Yeah.
And I had to fill up my car with $7 a gallon. So in LA, it's
$7 a gallon as we're taping this.
As we're taping.
Okay.
And so we're at this point where there's a tipping point of God exposing and allowing iniquity to be shown.
Yeah.
And iniquity, and even when you think of that, that's just wrong patterns of ways to think. And it's been so threaded in on so many levels. We're seeing it at home, domestically.
We are.
We're seeing it all through Europe. But in the midst of that, I felt like God told me in January, the enemy is on the move, but I already have him put in checkmate.
No.
Like that all hell's broken loose, but I've been on the move for longer. Like he's already been doing stuff. Like God's already, so there's all this stuff stirring up, but if it stays underground, it's more dangerous.
Yeah.
It'll fester longer and it'll blow up at inopportune times that the whole world will lose a whole generation.
Yeah.
But because just right before the Jesus people moved, you think of that period of time for 13 to 15 years, it was dark.
It was.
I mean, sexual impurity, nuclear family, people were moving away from it. You have free drug culture. You have false wars that were happening all over the earth. Like there was in that time, there's over 100 wars as well in about a 5-year period right before it broke out. So the average charismatic Pentecostal church was saying, Jesus is returning like next year. Like he's coming back right now because they had no hope in what God could build through Josephs and Daniels and Esther's and the people that God was about to raise up. And it changed the expression of Christianity in one generation. And we're there again where I think of some of the kids, like I'm kind of just want to internalize and just go with Jesus right now after hearing the report.
Right.
Because I think of out of these million kids and women, and a lot of them will be widows that are coming over, and there's 2 million people, 1 million are children. I do think of the seedbed of these righteous leaders that God's going to raise up. Because when you think of the Jesus people movement, 80 to 85% of pastors that are in office in America were saved in a 6-year period.
Wow.
Amen.
Wow.
So as God brings a movement of his presence, his love, his righteousness, in the midst of this unrighteous thing, someone's going to cry out, this is wrong.
Right.
Which is the beginning of revival.
Yes.
And in the midst of that, who is he raising up out of those 2 million? Who's he raising up that will be voices over Europe to bring a move and maneuver God's strategy? Because there's people behind the scenes who are speaking to politicians. I mean, Putin's own cousin's a radical, like revival Christian who's brought different prophets and people to speak to him through years. I was invited to go at one point to go into Moscow, and I didn't feel released to go to speak to him. So he's had the word of the Lord spoken to him, just like Saddam Hussein had the word of the Lord several times spoken to him, but he ended up like, Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon at the end of his life. But hopefully it's something activated for his own life. But I mean, he had the opportunity. God gave Putin the opportunity. And now I think God's allowing hell to break loose right before he's going to do something, not his desire to have hell break loose. But he's allowing something because there's a rearranging of even global structures right now that we don't understand. We don't need to understand it, but we do got to understand God is moving more than the enemy is moving.
Right.
God is doing more than man's doing wrong. And if we can keep that in the perspective and start to pray, don't just give your money today, but pray for the children that are coming over because some of them might be the next Billy Graham.
That's right.
Some of them might be the next, whatever it is.
That's right.
And that's what God's about to raise up as voices that will bring us back to God's original design, back to nuclear family, back to its design over Europe. There's so much wrong with the European Union. There's so much wrong with politics over all of Europe. Eastern Europe, Western Europe. There's so much wrong in Russia. In our nation, there's so much wrong. But God's doing something where he's raising up vessels where we used to just go into church. We used to just get anointed, start missions organizations. And he's saying it's time, again, for Josephs. It's time for Daniels, people who will be in societies. People will be under a king, people who will be to the left of the president, people who might be the president. He's raising people up in media, entertainment, sports. He's raising people up in business. And I've been meeting, and I know you guys have too, behind the scenes with people and going, there might have been, you may have been rare in a generation, but now God's doing it with so many that this is what's happening, is that Christians are taking and occupying seats of influence, and it's going to just change everything.